The Raymond Emperor's caustic laughter echoed across light years as he mocked the remnants of humanity's pathetic fleets, broken and scattered across desolate, conquered worlds, unaware of the legendary warships that slumbered in the void, waiting to rise again. The Raymond Galactic Empire's reptilian claws clutched hundreds of star systems in a stranglehold of conquest. Emperor Linux, perched upon his throne of subjugated worlds, surveyed his domain with cold arrogance. Dozens of species bowed before Raymond might, their technologies and cultures crushed beneath the Empire's relentless advance. On a remote outpost at the fringe of Raymond space, Inquisitor Zaxxa's eyes narrowed as he circled the battered human prisoner. Eric Wells, once a proud captain of the shattered Earth Defense Force, glared defiantly through blackened eyes. The interrogation chamber's stark lights gleamed off Zaxxa's scales as he sneered. Your species' primitive ships were a minor nuisance, human. The Defiant crumbled like a toy before our weapons. Earth fell a decade ago. Yet you speak of hidden fleets and Titan-class battleships. Laughable. Eric spat blood on the polished floor. Believe what you want, lizard. The Titans are out there waiting. When they rise, your empire will burn. Zaxxa's fist crashed into Eric's jaw, snapping his head back. Bold words for a captive. We shall see if Emperor Linux finds your story as amusing as I do. As guards dragged Eric to a holding cell, Zaxxa turned to the view screen. The shattered remains of humanity clung to life, scattered and downtrodden. If the humans' words held any truth, those hidden ships might be the last hope for their species' survival. But if Eric was lying, then the Riemann boot would soon grind the last embers of human resistance into the ashes of history. Emperor Linux's eyes gleamed with malice as Zaxxa relayed the news of the human prisoner's claims. Bring this Captain Wells to me at once. I wish to hear these tales of hidden fleets myself, Linux commanded, his voice dripping with sadistic anticipation. The journey to Rayma Prime was a bleak one for Eric. Confined to a cramped, poorly lit cell deep within Zaxxa's ship, he was subjected to constant surveillance and isolation. The Riemann guards, their scales glinting in the dim light, watched him with a mix of contempt and curiosity. Despite the harsh conditions, Eric refused to let despair consume him. He closed his eyes, summoning memories of his fallen comrades, their bravery and sacrifice fueling his resolve. He pictured Earth, once a vibrant blue marble, now a scorched remnant of its former glory. The thought of his homeworld's fate and the billions lost hardened his determination to endure whatever lay ahead. As the ship descended through Rayma Prime's atmosphere, Eric steeled himself for the inevitable confrontation with the Emperor. The grand throne room was a cavernous expanse of polished stone and towering columns, adorned with the banners of conquered worlds. Reman nobles, their scales adorned with jewels and intricate tattoos, lined the walls, their eyes fixed upon the human captive. Emperor Linux, an imposing figure clad in ornate armor, lounged upon his throne, his gaze boring into Eric as he was dragged before him. So this is the human who speaks of hidden fleets and mighty ships, Linux sneered. Tell me, Captain Wells, where are these Titan-class battleships you claim exist? Eric met the Emperor's gaze unflinchingly. I will never betray my people, no matter what you do to me. I would rather die than see those ships fall into your hands. Linux's eyes narrowed, his tail twitching with barely contained rage. You will tell me what I want to know, human, or you will suffer unimaginable agony. At the Emperor's signal, Zaxxa stepped forward, his tools of torture gleaming in the light. What followed were days of relentless pain and torment, as Zaxxa employed every method at his disposal to break Eric's will. Searing heat, icy cold, and bone-shattering force were unleashed upon his body, each new agony designed to shatter his resolve. But Eric had a secret, one that even his captors were unaware of, a hidden cybernetic implant, the product of Earth's most advanced military technology, coursed through his body, dulling the pain and fortifying his mind against the onslaught. With each passing day, Eric's resolve only grew stronger, even as his body weakened. As the torture continued, Eric began to sow the seeds of doubt in Zaxxa's mind. Through gritted teeth and blood-flecked lips, he spoke of the Titans' immense power, hinting at the destruction they could unleash upon the Rayman Empire. He whispered of the fury of a species pushed to the brink and the terrible vengeance they would exact upon their oppressors. Zaxor, his frustration mounting with each failed attempt to break the human, found himself questioning the wisdom of the Emperor's relentless pursuit of the hidden fleet. If the human's claims were true, then perhaps it would be better to let sleeping giants lie, rather than risk incurring their wrath. But Emperor Linux's obsession knew no bounds, and he demanded that the interrogation continue, no matter the cost. As Eric's blood pooled on the chamber floor and his screams echoed off the walls, the fate of two species hung in the balance, teetering on the precipice of annihilation. As Eric's screams echoed through the halls of the Imperial Palace, a group of robed Riemann scientists marched into the throne room, their scaled faces etched with excitement. Dr. Vaxir, a thin, wiry Riemann with a reputation for brilliance and eccentricity, stepped forward, bowing before Emperor Linux. "My lord, we have made a discovery that may change the course of this interrogation," Vaxir hissed, his eyes gleaming. "Our analysis of ancient human archives has revealed the existence of a secret human colony hidden in a remote corner of the galaxy established centuries ago." Linux leaned forward, his interest piqued. "What does this have to do with the Titan-class battleships?" "We believe this lost colony may hold the key to locating the hidden fleet," Vaxir explained. "The archives suggest that the colony was established as a failsafe, a last resort should humanity fall to an alien threat." Linux's eyes narrowed. "And you believe this human," he gestured towards the interrogation chamber, "knows the location of this colony?" Zaxor, standing beside the Emperor, interjected, "My lord, if this colony exists, it could pose a significant threat to our empire. We must investigate." "Agreed," Linux nodded. "Zaxor, assemble a fleet. We will find this lost colony and crush any remaining human resistance. The Titan-class ships will be ours." In the interrogation chamber, Eric lay battered and bloodied, his enhanced hearing picking up the conversation in the throne room. His eyes widened as he realized the Raymonds were closing in on the secret he had sworn to protect. He had to act fast. Summoning the last of his strength, Eric activated his cybernetic implant, his mind linking with the palace's security systems. Overriding the door controls, he stumbled out of the chamber, his body screaming in protest. Raymond guards rushed towards him, but he dispatched them with a series of precise, deadly strikes, his implant enhancing his speed and reflexes. Eric raced through the palace, dodging patrols and security drones, until he reached the hangar bay. Spotting a small Riemann scout ship, he leaped aboard, his fingers flying across the unfamiliar controls. The ship roared to life, blasting out of the hangar and into the skies of Rayma Prime. Alarms blared throughout the palace as Zaxor burst into the throne room. "My lord, the human has escaped. He stole a scout ship and fled the planet." Zaxor bowed, his eyes burning with rage as he turned to assemble his fleet. Eric, hunched over the scout ship's controls, plotted a course for the lost colony, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew he had to reach it before the Riemanns, to warn them of the coming danger and to protect the secret of the Titan-class ships. As the scout ship hurtled through the void, Eric's thoughts turned to his fallen comrades, their faces flashing before his eyes. He remembered their bravery, their sacrifice, and the oath they had all sworn to protect humanity's last hope. He would not let their deaths be in vain, no matter the cost. Behind him, Zaxor's fleet surged forward, a pack of predators hunting their prey. The race to the lost colony had begun, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Eric's stolen scout ship shuddered as it broke through the planet's atmosphere, the hull glowing red from the friction. The ship's sensors scanned the surface, searching for any signs of human life. Suddenly, a blip appeared on the radar, and Eric's eyes widened as he realized the magnitude of his discovery. The lost colony of Prometheus stretched out before him, a sprawling network of gleaming structures and verdant agricultural domes. Solar panels glinted in the sunlight, and the hum of advanced machinery filled the air. Eric guided the ship towards the colony's central command center, a towering spire that rose from the heart of the settlement. As he landed the scout ship on a nearby landing pad, a group of armed colonists emerged from the command center, their weapons trained on the unfamiliar craft. Eric raised his hands in surrender as he stepped out of the ship, his battered EDF uniform a stark contrast to the colonists' sleek black combat gear. A woman with piercing blue eyes and close-cropped blonde hair stepped forward, her rifle aimed at Eric's chest. "Identify yourself," she demanded, her voice laced with suspicion. "Captain Eric Wells, Earth Defense Force," Eric replied, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "I come in peace." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Earth fell years ago. How do we know you're not a Riemann spy?" Eric met her gaze unflinchingly. "I was there when Earth fell. I fought alongside the EDF's finest as we made our last stand. I watched as the Riemanns burned our cities and slaughtered our people. I carry the memory of their sacrifice with me every day." The woman hesitated, then lowered her weapon. "I am Commander Alara Vixen, leader of the Prometheus colony. We've been hidden here for generations, preserving the knowledge and technology of Earth's golden age. But we always knew this day would come." As Eric and Alara made their way into the command center, he marveled at the advanced technology that surrounded them. Holographic displays flickered with real-time data, and sleek, powerful weapons lined the walls. The colonists moved with a sense of purpose, their faces etched with determination. "We've been monitoring the Riemann Empire's activities for years," Alara explained, as they entered a large circular room filled with tactical displays. "We knew it was only a matter of time before they discovered our existence." Eric studied the displays, his mind racing with possibilities. The Riemanns are searching for the Titan-class battleships, the last hope for humanity's survival. They believe the location of the ships is hidden somewhere in this colony's archives. Before Eric could respond, an alarm blared through the command center. The tactical displays flashed red as a swarm of Riemann ships appeared in orbit, their weapons locking onto the colony's defenses. "They've found us," Alara whispered, her face grim. The ground shook as the first Riemann bombardment struck the planet's surface, the sound of explosions echoing through the colony's streets. Eric and Alara raced to the armory, grabbing weapons and donning combat gear. "We've prepared for this day," Alara said as she tossed Eric a pulse rifle. "We have advanced human technology and guerrilla tactics on our side, but we can't hold off the full might of the Riemann fleet for long." As they charged out of the command center, leading a group of determined colonists, the battle for Prometheus began. Pulse rounds and plasma bolts filled the air as the humans and Riemanns clashed in the colony streets, each side fighting with a ferocity born of desperation. Eric and Alara fought side by side, their movements fluid and precise as they cut through the Riemann ranks. The colonists rallied around them, their courage and skill a testament to the indomitable human spirit. But even as they fought, Eric knew that time was running out. The Riemann fleet was closing in, and the colony's defenses were beginning to falter. They needed a miracle, a way to turn the tide of battle before all was lost. And deep within the colony's archives, hidden beneath layers of encryption and secrecy, the location of the Titan-class battleships waited to be revealed, a final, desperate hope for a species on the brink of annihilation. As the Riemann soldiers stormed the Prometheus colony, pulse rounds and plasma bolts filling the air, Eric and Alara fought their way through the chaos. They ducked into alleyways and sprinted across rubble-strewn streets, the sounds of battle echoing all around them. Eric nodded, his grip tightening on his pulse rifle, as he fired off a burst of rounds at a group of advancing Riemann troops. The soldiers fell, their armor sizzling from the impact. The pair reached the hidden entrance to the underground bunker, a nondescript hatch set into the ground. Alara punched in a code on the keypad, and the hatch hissed open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into the depths of the colony. They descended quickly, sealing the hatch behind them. The bunker was a vast, dimly lit space, filled with advanced computers and communications equipment. In the center of the room stood a towering device, its surface covered in blinking lights and glowing screens. "The long-range communicator," Alara said, her voice tinged with awe. "It's our link to the Titan-class ships." Eric stepped forward, his eyes widening as he realized the implications. Titan, the fleet's AI, has been waiting for this signal. If we can activate it, the ships will come to our aid. Alara hesitated, her face etched with concern. But sending the signal will reveal the fleet's location to the Remans. Are we ready for that? Eric met her gaze, his jaw set with determination. We have no choice, it's now or never. They worked quickly, their fingers flying across the communicator's controls. The device hummed to life, and a pulsing signal burst forth, racing through the void of space towards the hidden fleet. Suddenly the bunker shook violently as Reman soldiers breached the entrance. Eric and Alara spun around, their weapons at the ready, as the troops poured into the room. They fought side by side, pulse rounds and plasma bolts crisscrossing the bunker as they held off the attackers. Alara shouted orders into her comm unit, directing the colony's civilians to the hidden escape pods. The Reman soldiers kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Eric and Alara found themselves being pushed back, their ammunition running low. Just as they were about to be overwhelmed, a deafening roar filled the air. The ground shook and the bunker's screens flickered to life, displaying a sight that made Eric's heart soar. A massive wormhole had opened up in the sky above Prometheus, and from its swirling depths emerged the Titan-class battleships. The sleek, powerful vessels, each one dwarfing the Reman ships, surged forward, their weapons already firing. The Reman fleet, caught completely off guard by the sudden appearance of the human ships, scattered in disarray. The Titans' advanced technology and firepower quickly overpowered the Reman vessels, their hulls buckling and shattering under the onslaught. On the planet's surface, Eric and Alara led the colonists in a fierce counterattack, retaking the streets and buildings from the Reman invaders. The tide of the battle had turned, and the once-conquered colony of Prometheus was now a battleground where humanity fought back against their oppressors. As the Titan-class ships, under the command of the AI Titan, pushed the Reman fleet back into the void, Eric and Alara knew that this was only the beginning. The fight for humanity's survival was far from over. As the last of the Reman forces fled Prometheus, their ships limping away into the void, Zaxa's personal shuttle broke free from the chaos. His scales were singed and his armor battered, but his eyes burned with a cold, calculated rage. The shuttle tore through the fabric of space, racing back to Rama Prime. In the Grand Throne Room, Emperor Linux's tail lashed with fury as Zaxa knelt before him, delivering the grim news of the Empire's defeat. The human fleet's power had been beyond anything they had anticipated, and the loss of the Prometheus colony was a bitter blow. Linux's voice was a low, menacing growl. "Mobilize every ship, every soldier. We will crush these humans and their accursed fleet. Their resistance ends now." On Prometheus, Eric and Alara stood in the heart of the colony's command center, the holographic displays casting a blue glow across their faces. The Titan-class ships hung in orbit above, a silent guardian over the newly liberated world. "We need to fortify our defenses and establish a base of operations," Alara said, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "The Remans will be back, and in greater numbers." Eric nodded, his gaze fixed on the displays. "We'll use the colony's resources and the support of the Titan fleet to bolster our position, but we need to think beyond just defending Prometheus." The AI's voice, Titan, echoed through the command center. "Captain Wells is correct. The fleet's full potential can only be unlocked by the Titan core, a key hidden on Earth before its fall. Without it, we are limited in our capabilities." Eric's jaw tightened. "Then I'll go. I'll lead a mission to infiltrate Earth and retrieve the core." Alara's eyes met his, a fire burning within them. "You're not going alone. I'm coming with you, and so are our best fighters. We are in this together." As they assembled their team, the best and brightest of the Prometheus colony, Eric couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. These were the descendants of Earth's finest, the inheritors of humanity's legacy. They would not fail. The team, christened Prometheus Squad, boarded a sleek, cloaked ship, its hull shimmering as it vanished from sight. They set out into the stars, navigating the treacherous paths of Riemann-controlled space, their destination the lost homeworld of humanity. But as they approached Earth, the squad found themselves facing a daunting obstacle. A massive Riemann blockade encircled the planet, a wall of ships and weapons designed to prevent any human incursion. And at its head, his ship bristling with armaments, was Zaxor. The Riemann Inquisitor's voice crackled over the comm, dripping with malice. "Did you think we would leave Earth unguarded, human? Your pathetic attempt to reclaim your world ends here." Eric's grip tightened on the ship's controls, his eyes narrowing as he stared out at the blockade. Alara and the rest of Prometheus' squad stood behind him, their faces etched with determination. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and they would not be denied their chance to strike back against their oppressors. Eric's fingers danced across the ship's control panel, his eyes narrowed in concentration as he guided the cloaked vessel through the Riemann blockade. The advanced stealth technology rendered them invisible to the enemy's sensors, allowing them to slip past undetected. Alara stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the viewscreen as the ravaged surface of Earth came into view. The ship descended through the atmosphere, its hull shimmering as it maintained its cloak. They landed near the ruins of an ancient EDF base, the once proud structures now little more than crumbling remnants of humanity's past glory. Prometheus' squad disembarked, their weapons at the ready as they picked their way through the rubble. Suddenly, a hail of plasma bolts erupted from the shadows, forcing the squad to scatter for cover. Riemann soldiers poured out from behind the ruins, their armor glinting in the dim light. At their head was a hulking figure, his body a twisted fusion of flesh and metal. Krone, a former EDF soldier turned Riemann cyborg, leveled his cannon at Eric and Alara. "Surrender, humans!" Krone's voice boomed, distorted by his cybernetic enhancements. "Your pathetic resistance ends here." Eric and Alara exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They charged forward, pulse rifles blazing as they engaged Krone in a fierce battle. The rest of Prometheus' squad fanned out, trading fire with the Riemann troops. "Krone, it's not too late," Eric shouted over the din of battle. "You were one of us once, a soldier fighting for humanity's future. The Riemanns have twisted you, but you can still come back from this." Krone's laughter was a harsh, metallic rasp. "You fool. The Riemanns have made me stronger than I ever was as a human. I serve the Emperor now, and I will crush you like the insect you are." In the end, Prometheus' squad emerged victorious, but at a heavy cost. Half of their number lay dead or dying, their blood staining the ancient concrete. Krone, his cybernetic body shattered, twitched feebly on the ground, his human eye staring blankly at the sky. Eric and Alara, battered and bleeding, led the remaining members of the squad deeper into the ruins. They followed a series of cryptic clues left behind by Eric's former commander, their path taking them into the bowels of the old EDF base. At last, they reached a hidden vault, its doors sealed tight against the ravages of time. Eric's fingers flew across the keypad, inputting the code that would grant them access. The doors hissed open, revealing a small, dimly lit chamber. There, resting on a pedestal, was the Titan core. The crystalline device pulsed with an otherworldly energy, casting an eerie glow across the vault. Eric reached out, his fingers closing around the core as he lifted it from its resting place. Suddenly the sound of clapping echoed through the chamber. Zaxor stepped from the shadows, his scales glinting in the core's light. A contingent of elite Riemann soldiers flanked him, their weapons trained on Prometheus' squad. "Well done, Captain Wells," Zaxor sneered. "You've led us right to the key to humanity's destruction. Now hand over the core, and I might consider granting you a swift death." Eric's grip tightened on the core as Alara stepped forward, her rifle leveled at Zaxor's head. The remaining members of Prometheus' squad fanned out, ready to fight to the last. A desperate battle erupted within the vault, pulse rounds and plasma bolts filling the air as Eric and Alara fought to protect the core. The elite Riemann soldiers pressed forward, their armor absorbing the brunt of the squad's fire. Eric ducked behind the pedestal, his heart pounding in his chest as he clutched the core. He knew that the fate of humanity rested on this moment, on the outcome of this one desperate fight. Alara crouched beside him, her face streaked with sweat and grime as she reloaded her rifle. The sound of fighting was deafening in the confined space of the vault, the clash of metal against metal and the sizzle of plasma filling the air. The remaining members of Prometheus' squad fought with a ferocity born of desperation, knowing that they were humanity's last hope. Pulse rounds and plasma bolts filled the air as the remaining members of Prometheus' squad fought with grim determination, giving everything they had to buy Eric and Alara the precious time they needed to escape with the Titan core. One by one, the brave soldiers fell, their blood staining the ancient concrete of the vault as they held the line against the relentless Riemann forces. Eric and Alara fought their way through the chaos, the Titan core clutched tightly in Eric's grasp. Zaxor's enraged roar echoed through the vault as he pursued them, his eyes blazing with a cold, calculated fury. They raced through the crumbling ruins of the EDF base, dodging plasma blasts and leaping over piles of rubble as they made their way towards their waiting ship. Just as they reached the vessel, Zaxor caught up to them, his claws slashing through the air. Alara turned, firing her rifle at the Riemann Inquisitor, forcing him to take cover behind a shattered wall. Eric sprinted up the ship's ramp, his heart pounding in his chest as he heard the sound of Zaxor's claws scraping against the metal hull. Alara leaped into the ship, just as Zaxor's plasma cannon fired, the blast narrowly missing her and slamming into the ship's cloaking device. Sparks flew and alarms blared as the device sputtered and died, rendering the ship visible to the Riemann fleet in orbit. Eric tossed the Titan core to Alara as he slid into the pilot's seat, his fingers flying across the controls. The ship's engines roared to life, lifting them off the ground and into the sky. As they broke through the Earth's atmosphere, the looming shape of a massive Riemann dreadnought filled the viewscreen, its weapons already locked onto their vulnerable craft. Emperor Linux's face appeared on the comm screen, his eyes glinting with malice. "Surrender the core and your lives may yet be spared, humans. Resist, and I will reduce your pitiful ship to atoms." Eric's grip tightened on the controls, his mind racing as he weighed their options. They couldn't outrun the Riemann fleet, not without the cloaking device. Suddenly, an idea struck him, a desperate gamble, but their only chance. Eric reached for the Titan core, his fingers closing around its smooth surface. He took a deep breath, then activated the device. The core burst to life, its crystalline structure pulsing with an intense, blinding light that filled the cockpit. The ship's sensors screamed as the core's energy signature flared, a beacon that cut through the void of space like a supernova. On the bridge of the Riemann dreadnought, Emperor Linux's eyes widened as he witnessed the core's activation. He barked orders to his crew, demanding that they seize the human ship and the core at once. But before they could act, a series of massive wormholes tore open the fabric of space around them, and from their swirling depths emerged the Titan-class battleships, their hulls gleaming in the light of the core. Titan's voice echoed across the comm channels, a clarion call to arms for the human fleet. The Titan-class ships surged forward, their weapons already firing as they caught the Riemann fleet off guard. Emperor Linux's dreadnought shuddered under the onslaught, its shields straining to hold back the tide of destruction. In the chaos of the battle, Eric seized their chance. He guided their battered ship through the maelstrom of plasma and debris, weaving between the clashing titans of metal and might. Alara manned the ship's weapons, firing with precision at any Riemann fighter that dared to cross their path. At last, they reached the hangar bay of the nearest Titan-class ship, the USS Deliverance. As they set down on the deck, the ship's commander and a contingent of human soldiers rushed to greet them, their faces etched with a mix of awe and determination. Eric and Alara emerged from their ship, the Titan core held high like a beacon of hope. The soldiers saluted, their eyes shining with a fierce, unwavering loyalty. Eric looked to Alara, a small smile tugging at his lips, despite the gravity of the situation. They had done it. Against all odds, they had secured the key to humanity's salvation. But even as they stood there, surrounded by their fellow humans, they knew that the fight was far from over. The Riemann Empire would not rest until they had crushed this new threat to their dominion, and Emperor Linux's wrath would be terrible to behold. Eric turned to face the soldiers, his voice ringing out strong and clear. "We've struck a blow against the Remans today, but the war is just beginning. Humanity needs us now more than ever. Are you with me?" The soldiers responded with a resounding cheer, their weapons held high in salute. Alara stepped forward, her hand clasping Eric's as they faced the challenges ahead, united in their resolve to see their species rise from the ashes of conquest and oppression. On the bridge of the USS Deliverance, Eric and Alara stood side by side, their faces illuminated by the holographic displays that surrounded them. The Titan core pulsed with energy, its light casting an ethereal glow across the room. Titan's voice echoed through the ship's speakers. "The fleet is fully operational and awaiting your command, Captain Wells." Eric nodded, his eyes scanning the star maps before him. "We need to strike at the heart of the Reman Empire, disrupt their supply lines, and weaken their hold on the galaxy." Alara pointed to a cluster of systems on the map. "These outposts are critical to the Empire's war effort. If we can take them out, we'll deal a serious blow to their operations." Eric grinned, a fierce determination burning in his eyes. "Then that's where we start. Prepare the fleet for a series of hit-and-run attacks. We'll hit them hard and fast before they have a chance to react." The human fleet, now bolstered by the full might of the Titan-class battleships, set out across the stars, striking at key Reman outposts with surgical precision. The Remans, caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, struggled to mount an effective defense against the lightning-fast raids. News of the human victories spread like wildfire, igniting a spark of hope in the hearts of those who had long suffered under the Reman yoke. Across the galaxy, subjugated species began to rise up against their oppressors, joining forces with the human resistance in a desperate bid for freedom. On Rima Prime, Emperor Linux paced the throne room, his tail lashing with fury as reports of the growing rebellion flooded in. He turned to Zaxa, his eyes narrowing. "You will crush this insurgency, Inquisitor. Take the full might of our fleet and destroy the humans once and for all." The Reman fleet, a vast armada of dreadnoughts and battlecruisers, assembled on the outskirts of a long-dead civilization, its ruins a testament to the destructive power of war. The human fleet, led by the USS Deliverance, emerged from hyperspace, ready to face their enemy in a battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The two sides clashed in a blinding exchange of plasma and missiles, the void of space lit up by the fury of their weapons. Titan-class ships and Reman dreadnoughts danced a deadly waltz, their hulls bristling with the scars of battle. Amidst the chaos, Eric gathered a hand-picked team of the Resistance's finest warriors, each one hardened by the fires of combat. They boarded a small, heavily armed shuttle and set out toward Zaxor's flagship, determined to confront the Inquisitor and end his reign of terror. The shuttle weaved through the battlefield, dodging debris and enemy fire as it closed in on its target. As they approached the flagship's hangar bay, alarms blared, and Reman soldiers poured out to meet them, their weapons spitting plasma. Eric and his team leaped from the shuttle, engaging the Remans in a brutal close-quarters battle. They fought their way through the hordes of soldiers, their skills honed by months of guerrilla warfare against the Empire. Eric led the charge, his pulse rifle barking as he cut a path towards the bridge. At last they reached the doors to the bridge, the final obstacle between them and their target. Eric slammed his fist against the controls, and the doors slid open, revealing the dark, cavernous expanse of the flagship's command center. There, standing amidst the banks of consoles and holographic displays, was Zaxor. The Inquisitor turned to face them, his eyes glinting with a cold, predatory light. "Welcome, Captain Wells," he hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "I've been expecting you." Eric stepped forward, his grip tightening on his rifle. "It's over, Zaxa. Your fleet is in ruins and your empire is crumbling. Surrender now, and your life may be spared." Zaxor laughed, a harsh grating sound that echoed through the bridge. "Surrender to a mere human? I think not." He drew his blade, a wicked, serrated thing that glinted in the dim light. "Come, Captain, let us end this once and for all." Eric and Zaxor circled each other, their eyes locked in a deadly stare. The Inquisitor moved with a serpentine grace, his blade weaving a hypnotic pattern through the air. Eric, his rifle abandoned in favor of a gleaming combat knife, matched him step for step, his own movements precise and deadly. They clashed in a flurry of steel and sparks, their blades ringing out in a fierce primal song. Each fought with a desperate intensity, driven by the weight of their own convictions and the knowledge that only one of them would walk away from this final confrontation. Around them the battle raged on, the flagship shuddering under the impact of the human fleet's relentless assault. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, and the acrid stench of smoke and burning plastic filled the air. Eric pressed his advantage, his blade finding the gaps in Zaxor's defenses, drawing blood with each precise strike. The Inquisitor, his scales now slick with his own blood, fought back with a desperate ferocity, but it was a losing battle. With a final decisive blow, Eric disarmed Zaxor, sending the Inquisitor's blade skittering across the deck. He pressed the tip of his knife against Zaxor's throat, his eyes hard and unforgiving. "Yield!" he growled, his voice barely audible over the chaos of the battle. As the Raymond fleet, now leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat, the tide of the battle turned in favor of the resistance. The human ships, their hulls scarred but unbroken, pressed their advantage, driving the Raymonds back into the void. On the bridge of Zaxor's flagship, Eric stood over the defeated Inquisitor, his knife still pressed against the Raymon's throat. He looked to his team, their faces etched with the weariness of battle, but also with the fierce pride of victory. "Secure the prisoner," he ordered, his voice steady and commanding. "We have a war to win." As the human resistance closed in on the heart of the Riemann Empire, Emperor Linux grew desperate. In a final, horrific act of defiance, he activated the Omega Protocol, a planet-killing superweapon hidden deep beneath the Imperial Palace on Rayma Prime. Eric and Alara, leading the charge against the Emperor's stronghold, knew they had to act fast. They assembled a strike team of their most skilled fighters and infiltrated the palace under the cover of the ongoing battle raging in the skies above. The palace's defenses were formidable, with squads of elite Rayman guards and automated security systems barring their path at every turn. Eric and Alara fought their way through the labyrinthine corridors, pulse rounds and plasma bolts scorching the ornate walls as they pushed deeper into the heart of the enemy's lair. At last, they reached the throne room, where Emperor Linux awaited them. The room was a cavernous expanse of polished stone and gleaming metal, dominated by the massive, pulsing form of the Omega Protocol's control system. Linux stood before the device, his eyes glinting with madness and desperation. "You're too late, humans," he snarled, his clawed fingers hovering over the activation controls. "With a single command, I can reduce this planet and your precious fleet to ashes." Eric and Alara leveled their weapons at the Emperor, their faces grim with determination. But before they could act, a familiar figure stepped out from behind the throne, Zaxor, his eyes blank and his movements stiff and unnatural. "Zaxor, what are you doing?" Eric demanded, his grip tightening on his rifle. Linux laughed, a cruel, grating sound that echoed through the chamber. "He serves me now, human. A little gift from our scientists, a control chip implanted in his brain. He will fight for me, even if it means his own destruction." With a flick of Linux's wrist, Zaxor lunged forward, his blade flashing in the dim light. Eric and Alara met him head-on, their weapons clashing in a furious dance of death. The battle was brutal, with Zaxor's enhanced strength and speed pushing them to their limits. Eric felt the sting of the Raymond's blade, the bite of plasma grazing his skin as he fought to hold his ground. Alara was a whirlwind of fury, her attacks precise and deadly, but even she could not escape the battle unscathed. As the fight wore on, the control system pulsed and thrummed, the countdown to the weapon's activation ticking away with each passing second. Linux watched the struggle with a sadistic glee, his finger poised over the final activation switch. In that moment, something changed in Zaxor's eyes, a flicker of recognition, a spark of defiance against the chip's control. With a roar of pain and rage, he wrenched himself free from Linux's mental grip, his blade slicing through the air towards the Emperor. Linux reacted with lightning speed, his own sword meeting Zaxor's in a clash of sparks and shrieking metal. The two Remans fought with a savagery born of desperation, each knowing that the fate of their species hung in the balance. Eric and Alara, seizing the opportunity, lunged for the control system, their fingers flying across the panels as they sought to disable the weapon. But the system was too complex, too heavily encrypted, and the countdown continued its relentless march towards zero. In a final, desperate act, Zaxor broke free from his duel with Linux, his blade arcing through the air towards the pulsing heart of the Omega Protocol. The sword pierced the device, sending a shockwave of energy rippling through the chamber. The control system began to overload, sparks and smoke pouring from its shattered remains. The entire palace shook as the weapon's power core destabilized, the countdown accelerating towards its inevitable conclusion. "We have to go now," Eric shouted, grabbing Alara's hand as they sprinted for the exit. Behind them, Zaxor and Linux continued their battle, the Emperor's rage and madness driving him to lash out at his former servant, even as the palace crumbled around them. Eric and Alara burst from the throne room, just as the explosion consumed it, the shockwave sending them tumbling to the ground. They clawed their way to their feet, racing through the disintegrating corridors as the palace collapsed in on itself. They emerged into the smoke-filled sky, the wreckage of the palace raining down around them. As the Omega Protocol's power core detonated, the blast wave shattering the nearby buildings and sending tremors through the planet's crust. In the chaos and confusion, the remnants of the Raymond fleet, leaderless and demoralized, scattered to the winds, their once mighty ships reduced to little more than debris and dust. The resistance had won, but the cost had been high. Zaxor was gone, along with so many others who had given their lives in the fight against the Empire. The streets of Rama Prime lay in ruins, a testament to the destructive power of the Omega Protocol and the desperate lengths to which Linux had been willing to go to preserve his rule. As the smoke began to clear and the first tentative rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, Eric and Alara stood amidst the rubble, their faces streaked with grime and sweat. They looked out over the shattered remains of the Riemann capital, their hearts heavy with the weight of all that had been lost. But even in the midst of the destruction and sorrow, there was a glimmer of hope. The Riemann Empire was no more, its cruel grasp on the galaxy finally broken. The surviving species, human and alien alike, could begin to rebuild, to forge a new future free from the shadow of tyranny and oppression. Eric and Alara knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, that the scars left by the Empire's reign would not heal easily. But as they stood there, hand in hand, watching the sun rise over the shattered horizon, they knew that they would face whatever challenges lay ahead together, united in their determination to build a better tomorrow. The story ends with Eric and Alara silhouetted against the rising sun, the light of a new day washing over them, as they begin the long, hard journey towards a brighter future. Behind them, the ruins of Rama Prime stand as a silent testament to the sacrifices made and the battles fought, a reminder of the high price of freedom and the unbreakable spirit of those who dared to fight for it. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.